acute myeloid leukemia disease is a $975 billion market, so almost $1 trillion market. And Palantir has an equity stake in this company that just got fast track designation to continue their studies. Everybody, as promised, I am going to start my series on the deep dive of Palantir's investments. The table we have in front of us is based on the September 30th financials, where we know they have firm investments, which are the ones on top right here, the joint venture, which we know about right here, and the contingent investments, which were not yet firm when the September 30th results were released. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a video for each firm that they invested in, and I'm going to make a decision, whether it was a win or whether it was a major L. Now, in my opinion, it's a win when there is a lot of promise in the company to grow from an equity perspective, when the company looks like it's going to generate good cash flow, and Palantir is going to come out a winner in terms of generating deal value from it, and also marketing from a use case perspective. Now, I would consider it an L when I think the company is not a real company, they don't have a real product, and it's not really something that's promising or innovative or life-changing. Now, based on the information we have in front of us, what we do know is that based on the share price of all these known companies, Palantir likely has an unrealized loss of $55 million. But, like Alex Karp says, day-to-day share price movement, quarter-over-quarter, doesn't really matter. It's all about long-term value generation. And I also am a firm believer in that. Most of these companies are pioneers in what they're doing, and it's not going to be done overnight. Now, another takeaway I want to do is that Palantir is expected to invest $400 million in all these firms. However, the total deal value is $858 million. So you know very clearly that they are getting their money back and more. So that's good. However, the risk is that these companies might not be cash flow positive for that long and may not be able to pay those fees. Now, from what I know, of the $858 million, $640 million is from the investment agreements that are already secured. So from these 8 companies, and the remaining 218 are from these ones. Now, I imagine that as these investments become firm, the value of the deals may change. But this is something to be mindful of. And this information I did obtain from their webcast, where they, put in the fine print, like, okay, well, our commercial deals went from 1.1 to 2.2. But then in the fine print, you see that it includes $858 million in investment agreements. Excluding that, it would be about $1.3 billion. So it's not to say that it's not a real deal. Any of the companies, whether it was obtained through equity investments, or whether it was downright marketing efforts where you spent millions of dollars to secure meetings, deals, pitches, it's all the same. I think it's even better if you can get an equity investment in the company, because that way you have a say and you have exposure as to what's happening in the company, and you can continue to be a value-added partner as opposed to just spending millions of dollars on salespeople and marketing and getting a deal that might not be recurring the next year. So without further ado, let's get into the details. Let's start seeing what each company does and make a decision as to whether this company is a win or an L. So now let's get into it. Celularity, what do they do? Why does it matter? And what exciting news did they come out with yesterday on the 27th? So Celularity is a company that believes it can harness the unique biology and ready availability of the placenta. Placenta is pretty much what a baby grows in before it's born. How will they change the world? I think this is an important thing to really understand the vision of the company. They want to lead the next evolution in cellular medicine by delivering off-the-shelf allogenic cellular therapies at unparalleled scale, quality, and economics. I don't know what any of this means, so I did have to Google what an allogenic stem cell transplant means. It means using healthy blood stem cells from a donor to replace your diseased or damaged bone marrow. An allogenic stem cell transplant is also called an allogenic bone marrow transplant. A donor can be from a family member, an acquaintance, or someone you don't know. So what this really means is that whatever you're taking, what Celularity is trying to do is they're trying to take what are the stem cells found in the placenta and be able to create different types of therapeutics that can attack different types of diseases and help treat them. Now, the total addressable market, it's hard to really put a figure on this just because what someone's willing to pay for a cure can vary from country to country. There are some, vague resources online. It's not super clear, but, this source says that the global acute myeloid leukemia therapeutics market is expected to reach $976 billion by 2026. So almost a $1 trillion market. Now, this is promising, and I guess this is why Palantir invested in Celularity, because they do see the potential to address a major disease and be able to be a true partner with Celularity to help unlock these insights that are found in the different data sets and studies that they're conducting for these different types of diseases. Now, if you take a look at their performance, Celularity only made $16 million, lost 96, so they're burning money every year. So how can Palantir profit from this deal? There's the equity stake, $20 million at $10 a share, which will fluctuate based on the market price. There's the foundry licensing fees, so $40 million over 5 years, so about $8 million a year in revenues. And then there's the successful use case, where if Celularity can develop a successful therapeutic, other pharma companies or startups in the pharma industry will look into working with Palantir because they can see the competitive advantage that they'll gain from having these data insights that they were not seeing before, or that they were spending way too much time trying to understand. Now, there was a multi-year announcement that was in May, but that announcement didn't really give a lot of details as to, what kind of money that Palantir is going to make in terms of licensing fees. So I found that data from the 10Q that it was for the period ending September 30th, 2021, which was released last month. In it, you see that Celularity has a master subscription agreement with Palantir, under which it will pay $40 million over 5 years for access to Palantir's Foundry platform, along with certain professional services. The company will utilize Palantir's Foundry platform to secure deeper insights into data obtained from the company's discovery and process development, as well as manufacturing biorepository operations. During the third quarter of 2021, the company paid its first fee of $6 million. For the 9 months ended September 30, 2021, the company has recorded costs of $2.5 million related to this agreement. So, from this, you do realize that there is a $40 million deal over 5 years. Before, I did see some articles sprinkling it, but no one really quoted it, so this is where I found the data, and I'm comfortable with it. The question is, that everyone wants to know is, will Celularity even survive for 5 years to be able to pay $8 million a year? It all depends on how successful they are with the therapeutics and if they can convince shareholders or new shareholders to continue investing their money, which will ultimately fund their development and research, which now includes Palantir as a software tool. So now I just want to look at the latest news, which I think is very exciting. It came out yesterday on the 27th, and it was released at 8 a.m. yesterday, and it's Celularity receives Fast Track designation from US FDA for its NK cell therapy, SYNK, in development for the treatment of AML, Acute Myleoid Leukemia. Celularity, a clinical stage biotechnology company developing placental-derived allogenic cell therapies, today announced that the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has granted Fast Track designation for its non-genetically modified, cryopreserved human placental hematopoietic stem cell-derived natural killer therapy, SYNK001, in development for the treatment of acute myeloid leukemia. The majority of patients with AML continue to have poor long-term outcomes, particularly those who suffer relapse or have measurable residual disease, necessitating development of novel therapies, including SYNK001. And what he means by poor long-term outcomes, it's this average where you see, like, on average, people between 25 and 64 have a 40% chance that they'll survive leukemia for 5 years or more after they're diagnosed. So that means 60% don't make it. If you're over 65, then only 5 out of 100 people on average will survive their leukemia. So that means 95% don't make it. So this is a big disease, and it does have a lot of damage. So the fact that they're, the FDA granted this fast track designation means there's a lot of urgency behind this. And Celularity, the fact that they've been able to present promising data in relation to this means that, Palantir was able to see that there's a lot of value offered here, and the software that they have, Palantir Foundry, can help get this product to market faster, or at least come to a conclusion that it's feasible or not feasible. So Fast Track designation is an FDA process designed to facilitate the development and expedite the review of new drugs that are intended to treat a serious condition and have the potential to address unmet medical needs. The purpose of Fast Track designation is to expedite the process of getting important new drugs to patients. The designation may offer frequent interactions with the FDA review team on the product development, and the product may be eligible for rolling review and priority review if certain criteria are met. So rolling review and priority review is pretty much what the COVID vaccines were getting. They were getting direct attention of the FDA for the data as they were coming out to be able to make quick conclusions as to if this drug has any promise, if it's safe, and if it can do what it says it does, instead of waiting for all the data to be accumulated over the study period and then entering into review phase, which takes, many quarters or even years. This is pretty promising. It's a $975 billion industry according to one study. Just acute myeloid leukemia disease is a $975 billion market, so almost $1 trillion market. And Palantir has an equity stake in this company that just got fast track designation to continue their studies. So this is very exciting and very promising. Now I do want to watch another video that I found. It was pre-SPAC. So let's take a look at that video.
It can actually help the end consumer.
Certainly, and I want to also mention that we're very fortunate that Palantir not only decided to work with us as a company in cellular medicine, but they also, in fact, have an interest in participating as an equity owner of the company, which, as you know, is quite valuable to us. So first and foremost, the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning has first been deployed in the genomics sphere, where it's been used to help interrogate these enormous data sets that come with every cellular medicine. The genomics tools that are available today to understand what genes are responsible for what diseases and so on and so forth is extremely helpful information to a company like ours that is developing immunotherapy products to treat different cancers, as well as products to treat degenerative diseases, infectious diseases, and so on. What Palantir brings to this relationship is the ability to work with enormous data sets and help us begin to decipher what's important, what's meaningful for us as we determine which product to take into which disease, and what's potentially predictive of the activity, the biological activity in patients. So, as you know, we're very focused on accelerating the time to develop products that can be registered by the FDA. We're also looking at using tools like real-world data to help create efficiencies around developing those products. And we also need to build a large and capable data system which can accommodate enormous numbers of, for example, donor cell lines. Every donor comprises a unique genome, and the ability to manage that enormous data set is something that our industry can dramatically benefit from.
Now, if for those who don't know what Celularity does, even me, I had no idea. And it's a lot of science lingo, a lot of pharmaceutical lingo being used. But if we had to kind of dumb it down, this PowerPoint presentation that they put together, I took a few snippets of it. Does a great job at highlighting what they do. So Celularity placenta-derived product platform. They have a placenta, so it's postpartum placenta, so that means after birth. There's an abundant, reliable, renewable, biologically consistent raw material, and it's nature's professional universal donor tissue. There's 140 million worldwide, so I mean, technically you can have access to a placenta as soon as someone gives birth, given that they provide consent. Some people do some freaky stuff. They also eat their own placenta, which is kind of weird, but it was a trend at a certain time, and I remember being freaked out by it. The greatest degree of natural stemness, so greater proliferative performance and persistence, greater natural immune tolerance. There's 100 to 100,000 doses per placenta. So technically you can scale this because it's very healthy. If you think about it, the placenta is something that gives birth to human life that continues till death. So whatever, that little baby that comes out of the placenta just keeps generating, keeps growing for 80 years, and then on average, and then dies. So the scalability of these cells, being able to take them and duplicate them in the lab and still be able to maintain the integrity is I've watched a few videos of Celularity execs speaking about it, and they said the potential is unquantifiable. Like it can keep going for as long as you think. Now, one placenta to many patients, universal donor material, no requirement for matching. Like, if you're donating blood, if you're donating anything, you need to make sure that the same blood match and everything works. But when it comes to the raw materials in a placenta, you don't have to do that. Cryopreserved, on demand and off the shelf. So, there's no toxicity concerns. There's absence of alloantibodies. I'm not really sure what this means, but technically you can put it frozen in a fridge and it should be good, and it's technically timeless. So the other slide that I found, so what are they working on? What kind of with a single source, what kind of different types of diseases are they trying to treat? So there's 4 key programs. They list them here, and there's 4 types: unmodified, genetically modified, and I'm not even bother to pronounce this, but 6 initial indications means that they see that there's 6 pathways for 6 different treatments. So B cell malignancies, AML, acute myeloid leukemia, this COVID-19, HER2 and gastric cancer, and Crohn's. So this is their initial indication of the focus. Obviously, I think they had their fast track designation for COVID-19, but they kind of let it go because there's all kinds of treatments in the pipeline for COVID-19. Now, there's future opportunities and indications. So they say that there's these type of treatments that could be done: infectious diseases, manufacturing. They say they already have a purpose-built, fully integrated manufacturing facility that's rapidly scalable, end-to-end supply chain. And this is what is in the pipeline right now. So based on the cell type that they find in the placenta, they have about 5 different programs. And acute myeloid leukemia, they said they're in phase 1. This is what they got fast track designation for. That was announced yesterday. Then they have this, which is in phase 1, 2A, phase 2. They have this for gastric cancer, which is a big deal. They're hoping to get started on phase 1, phase 2, 2022. So all this to say is that this one single source has a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of different research, a lot of different data gathering that has to be done. So right now, if I take a step back, all of this to me is very fluff. Okay, there's no revenues today apart from some minor licensing fees maybe, but they're completely in R&D mode. Nothing has been proven commercially yet, apart from they're in the pipeline for doing a lot of investigations. I do question the fact that, you know, they're taking the placenta and then they're using the materials in the placenta to develop therapeutics. You know, why can't anyone else do this? You know, placenta is not proprietary. Anyone can take it. But they say that they do have a proprietary technology to do this. And, you know, this is where I get a bit concerned because I'm like, you know, that's a lot of fluff, you know, like how do you, like, I'm not knowledgeable enough. The truth is I'm not. And when they say they have a proprietary ability to do this that others cannot copy, see, this is what they say: proprietary placenta-based platform developed over a 20-year history. So they said they have a 20-year history, but here they go. The manufacturing process. So cell isolation and selection, proprietary perfusion methodology. So they do have a proprietary technique that they have gotten. I actually don't know what perfusion means, so let's Google that. Perfusion is the passage of fluid through the circulatory system or the lymphatic system to an organ or tissue. So long story short, you know, all of this is a lot of promise. You know, Celularity says it's going to take this proprietary ability that they have to the promised land, and they're going to develop all kinds of drugs that can technically treat a lot of serious diseases. I can see the win for Palantir if the investors keep plowing money into Celularity and Palantir still is able to cash out their equity and get paid for the foundry services. Then it's a big win. If they stick it through and stay with Celularity until Celularity finds gold, you know, strikes gold and strikes oil and gets a cure to one of these very serious diseases, then obviously the stock will become that much more valuable. So my takeaway is that the potential of Celularity is very promising. The fact that the FDA is giving them fast track designation means that it's very promising. The diseases are very serious that they're trying to treat, and although they're not profitable now, from an investment point of view, for Palantir Foundry, the opportunity here is too good to say no. $20 million is nothing to Palantir because they have $2 billion in their balance sheet. They're getting a $40 million deal out of this. So even if the equity stake goes to zero, they're still able to squeeze out $40 million out of the company, which will allow them to recoup their equity stake for $1 and get 20 million on top of that, which means the other investors who pitched into Celularity are essentially paying for Palantir services. And if there is a true success story out of this, then, you know, for example, if they're able to get a cure for AML, which is technically pegged to be $975 billion, then Palantir is going to be a part of that success story, and it will be a great use case for them to pitch on the road to other startups and to other pharma companies. So I think this is a win. So this is a win. I would give it a 10 out of 10, or not 10 out of 10, but I'll just say win or loss. And we'll keep going. You know, I think it's a win. We'll keep going. I'll keep continuing with the other investments on my other videos. So make sure to subscribe and stay tuned, and we'll go through the others together. Thank you.